What's up, traders? Andrew O'Connell here with Pristine Capital. Welcome to your market recap video. It is August 4th of 2022. We had a pretty insane day of trading. We traded Coinbase today and we got long in the pre-market session and we were able to take that trade off. I took 50% of it off for about a 40% winner within an hour. So it was a pretty wild day. Let's dive into the indices and we'll start there. S&P 500 finished down 0.07%. The NASDAQ QQQ was a leader, up 0.47%. IWM small caps down just a smidge, down 0.21%. Our dogs of the Dow also down about 0.25%. And our ARK Innovation ETF was once again the leader, up 0.82%. Pretty much all of these indices closed towards the middle end of their day's range. But you can see the NASDAQ actually closed out towards the highs. We did get a continued volatility crush. In the morning, we did have positive volatility. Then it sort of died out throughout the session. And we had very mixed breadth. We had 50% advancers in the small caps. And we finished out the session with 42.6% up volume. My trend model did flip back to a +3. But I know there's a lot of emotions out there. There's a lot of FOMO going on. There's people that are not used to a market moving up for 4, 5, 6 days in a row, and now they're kind of like, what do I do? I was listening to all the perma bearish macro narratives. I don't know what's going on anymore. So it's very important to just maintain your composure. And to be honest, as I look at this market landscape, I think we had a very nice full month and a half of rallying pretty much. Now the rally definitely seems like there's some distribution going on in certain areas and maybe some accumulation in others. The FANG stocks have certainly been accumulated. We had Amazon with a nice green day, up 2.19%. You can see all the semis were pretty strong as well. And the major weakness was in energy. And crude oil prices, they're now down below $90 a barrel. So that's fantastic for the consumer. And it's actually fantastic for the markets too, because that likely means lower future inflation expectations. Sectors, again, the ARK Innovation ETF and the ARK FinTech. Ever since PayPal reported, FinTech moved into our top momentum slot. And we see that solar energy had a horrible day yesterday, led by Sedge to the downside on that weak earnings report. And we got a nice bounce back in those solar names. Biotech, up 5.53%. It's moving its way back to the top of this leaderboard. But we did have a few areas that sold off. We had retail down, we had global autos down, and of course we had cannabis, which is pretty much always down in the dumps. Let's take a look at our sectors. High beta was up 0.41%, and growth was also up. But we did have some selling across these other style factors. The high div, low vol, and momentum style factors were both down on this session. Now let's move over to our headline indices team and let's just take a quick look at where we are. So it is August, and August tends to be a slugfest, a very choppy period of seasonality. And I would say so far August, I mean, granted, we're only a couple days in. It's August 4th. Can you believe that? It has been pretty choppy at the headline index level, but under the surface, there are a lot of stocks rallying. I'm sure you noticed that if you're following the markets. A lot of these beaten down growth stocks, such as the ARK Innovation ETF, it's had a pretty good run. Some names like Celsius, for example, that are running out to new high ground. So that's why in May and June I kept telling everyone, like, just don't focus on these perma bearish narratives. Like, now's a great opportunity. Now a lot of these stocks have more than doubled off of the lows. Well, let's take a quick look back at these indices. S&P 500 is trading up 0.1% in the after hours. We have a Venom R1 pivot up here at 4182.25. If we were to tag the 4200 level, I think that would be max frustration for any of the stubborn bears. I am noticing, again, remember I traded Coinbase. A lot of the most highly shorted stocks that everyone's been very pessimistic on, they've been the best shorts to be in. A lot of those are actually rallying the most. In terms of downside, though, imagine this scenario. So all it would take is one bad headline or one significant, let's sell off some stocks moment. We could have one candle realistically that bearish engulfs the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candles. So keep that in mind. That is not out of the ordinary. Something very similar happened over here in June. So you can see exactly what we mean by that, where you get a bunch of days of consolidation, and then all it takes is one day to really ruin it. Same thing to the upside. It could go the exact opposite way, but it's just very important when the market's moving sideways. A lot of traders and a lot of investors, they're focusing all their energy on, if I accumulate all of this information and read a bunch of news, I can predict which way it's going to go. And that's like the most counterintuitive thing. You just don't want to be doing that. You really just want to make sure that your portfolio, hey, if the market goes up, am I going to be all right? Okay. The market goes down, am I going to be all right? That's really where you want to be when the market's just kind of coiled up like that. NASDAQ is moving, I don't want to say on a parabolic fashion, but it's definitely moving up there pretty quick. And you can see how extended away from the 20-day simple moving average it is. This is always what happens. When the market is really cascading to the downside, most investors think, the market can't go up again. Like, I'm just focused on downside, like whatever. And when the market is this extended away from the 20-day simple moving average, investors tend to not really believe it could ever get back there. It's always important to stay even keel and you'll be okay. Russell 2000 also moving its way to the upside. And we have our dogs of the Dow that are also kind of just moving sideways, chugging along here. So let's talk about this Coinbase trade that we did in the pre-market. And this was pretty fantastic. And some Pristine Capital members did get in on this trade as well, which I love to see. So check it out. Today there was a headline, and the headline said that BlackRock was going to be partnering with Coinbase. And there's going to be a partnership with Aladdin, which is BlackRock's institutional software, and obviously Coinbase's brokerage execution platform. Now, from my prior life working at Vanguard, I'm actually intimately familiar with the BlackRock Aladdin software because Vanguard actually managed its fixed income portfolios on Aladdin. It's actually really cool. BlackRock created this incredibly elegant software to house portfolios, manage them. It's technically called an investment book of record. And it just works so well, they started licensing it out to other companies. Now, typically the way it works when an institution places a trade, there's all these different execution platforms that are used. And then you have to set up a connection. Now, we'll take those trades from the broker dealer or whoever you executed it with. For Vanguard, we would trade with like Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, UBS, like all these different banks. And you got to be able to electronically send those trades into your investment book of record, which is Aladdin. So I'd imagine, I wrote here in this note, news broke that BlackRock is doing a partnership with Coinbase for its institutional Aladdin clients. I'm intimately familiar with Aladdin from my prior roles on the trading desk at Vanguard. I'd imagine that institutional clients will be able to purchase crypto assets on Coinbase, and their trade data / holdings will be piped into their Aladdin investment book of record. And I wrote, we'll add to this position if the stock trades well during the session. We executed that basically like 2 to 5 minutes after the news came out for $79.28. I started to see the stock moving in pre-market and moved up an additional $1, and I added to my position for $80.25. I ended up selling off part of the trade literally 40 minutes later. I got in at an average cost of $79.76. I sold off part of my position at $110.43. So that's like a 40% return in about an hour. That does not happen to me all the time. That's like a very special thing where I happen to be on the desk at the switch. We're doing our pre-market prep as we always do in the Pristine Capital Trading Discord. And something just lines up, a golden opportunity, and we just seized it. And that's how it went. Pretty phenomenal stuff. I've actually never had that happen to me yet in my career, like a 40% move in an hour. So pretty wild stuff. I closed out more of the Coinbase trade for $109.27. and that was at 9:35, so literally 5 minutes after the open. So honestly, everyone, like 9:35 hit, and I was like, whew, I'm done for the day. Like, there's nothing left to do. Like, I can just not have to worry about the market for today. So that was very, very cool. And look at this. So we were posting about this in the morning, and we typically throw this stuff into our trading room chat. And so we got a bunch of different channels. Like, this one is the earnings channel. I've been posting all these different company earnings in here. But if we go to the trading room, so check this out. We have our Trady Ticks Discord bots in here as well. And check this out. So users can just query the bots, and it makes it very easy. You can see options, order flow, all that kind of stuff. But take a look here. So this is where we were kind of chatting about it. Yeah, this is at 8:24, and we're talking. We used to use Aladdin to manage the fixed income funds, blah, blah. Our institutional clients are increasingly interested in gaining exposure to digital asset markets and are focused on how to efficiently manage the operational life cycle of these assets. This is huge. We found, I did some quick Wikipedia-ing, and look at this. So we found, where was this? I put, check this out. BlackRock in 2013 handled about 11 trillion in assets. As of 2020, this is not perfectly up to date. It might be more, it might be less, but this is ballpark. Aladdin managed 21.6, not million dollars, not 21.6 billion dollars, 21.6 trillion dollars in assets. Now, why would BlackRock be setting up this connection with Coinbase? Likely because some of their big institutional clients want to start running a crypto book. So it's huge news for the industry. And to be honest, we just saw it and we were like, hey, Coinbase, maybe this thing moves. So yeah, very cool stuff. And then what else did we do for today? For today as well, I did place some options trades. And I also just did some portfolio cleanup as well. So let's check it out. So one thing I did close out my GTBIF common shares. This is a stock. It's a cannabis company, an absolutely fantastic company. I'm still invested in this one for the long term, but my trading account is really about price action trading, really just working my core trading strategy. GTBIF, it does not fit into that. This is really like a long-term investment. It's not showing any relative strength right now. It just does not fit within the context of this portfolio. So I closed out my common shares in my trading account for $973. I'd paid $1035. And yeah, just a little paper cut loss, no big deal. And then I did take some HUD 8 common shares for $238, and really just for the reason we already outlined, that if BlackRock is doing this partnership with Coinbase, that means there are institutions coming into the crypto market. A lot of the crypto heads, they're always screaming about institutional adoption. Oh my gosh, it's like this buzzword. But this news actually means that there's institutional adoption that is happening. So I got long on crypto mining stock. Then in terms of options, all I did was I put on some ARK September 16th, 48 strike puts. So it's kind of funny. In May, I was the guy saying like ARK could go up. It's not going to zero. All that stuff. I just closed out the final piece of my ARK Leap call options yesterday. And now today I put on a very small hedging trade. And I wrote here, I sized this trade very small. That way I can use it as an actual hedge and I don't need to worry if it goes to zero. The problem is sometimes if you size your options trades too big, then all of a sudden you might see it going against you and it's like, oh my God, and it like hurts. I made sure, I was like, I'm just going to size this very small. That way, like if ARK keeps going up, it's not going to be like killing me or anything like that. It's just like a little hedging trade. So those were our trades for today. I do want to touch on, before we drop off for tonight, we did have a bunch of earnings that came out. So let's take a look at those. We did have some big winners as a result of this earnings day. We had Cloudflare. It's trading up 20.99% in the after hours. And we also have Progeny, which is trading up 17.63%. Now I'm going to share with you what I think is very interesting about Progeny in particular. So Progeny, this is a fertility management company. And take a look here. And I mean, that's like a pretty big theme with this whole like Roe v. Wade type of thing. But look at what happened to Progeny team. So Progeny, ahead of the earnings report, investors must have thought this was going to be like a horrible report. So this thing completely dumped today. It went from about 32.45 all the way down to, about $29 a share. So pretty horrendous stuff, right? After the earnings report, now it's trading back up at 34.50. So all the way up here. This is for sure an expectation breaker. So all those players that sold off their shares, they thought, I just need to get out of this stock. This thing sucks. Now suddenly those players could have to chase this stock. So this is definitely an interesting one to watch. And this is why, like in yesterday's video, we just talked about, hey, be patient out there. Like all it takes is like one good idea that's executed very well. And that could make like your trading week, your trading month, whatever. So like if there's 1,000 stocks moving and you're like worried that you're missing all 1,000, like don't worry about it. All you got to do is just hone in on a few things. Maybe you catch, one good opportunity and you do it very well. And that's all you really need to focus on. You don't need to be perfect, nothing like that. I am certainly not perfect in the slightest bit, but it's all about just continuing to get better. So along that note, we got some earnings tomorrow. Definitely we're going to be watching for these names. Along that note of just getting better, put this out here to the ether of the universe. And I wrote, one of my trading goats, Mark Minervini, made a vow in the late 80s to never take a loss larger than 8% on a stock trade for the rest of his life. And then he went on to become, a big investing champion. So, there's a reason for that. And I wrote, today I make that same vow. I'll never allow a stock to move greater than 8% against me for the rest of my life. So I have a detailed position log where I track everything. If a stock goes beyond an 8% loss, I'm cutting it. Doesn't matter. Maybe I can re-enter the stock immediately after I cut it. Who cares? If I choose to do that, that's perfectly fine. But if a stock moves against me by 8%, I have to take it off, at least temporarily. You can always get back in, whatever. I honestly think so many investors, they place all their emphasis, like everything on FinTwit, every investing newsletter, all this stuff. What's the focus? You tell me. The focus is always on, let's find the next stock. Let's find like a method that will teach you which way a stock is going to move. And let's learn how we can predict what way the market's going to move. That is 99% of investing, education, investing content. And most investors, that's all they're focused on. And I really think most investors, they're losing money. And that's probably the reason why. And I really think the vast minority of investors, that their main focus is just on what's the size of my average loser? What's the size of my average winner? How do I improve that? I think if people focused on that more, they would be just so much better in terms of their performance. So that is my vow. And that's the best thing about the trading community, that it's more accountability for me. So it's fantastic. So I want to just stick to this. This is the vow that I'm making. And we'll see how it goes, team. With that being said, that about does it for this post-market recap. Hope everyone enjoys their evening. And as always, we will see you all tomorrow.